Check 1 2, check 1 2. Ooh, I don't like that. Should be much better now. Oh yeah, it definitely is. Alright, well, we're going to get started here. Misano tonight. Round 8, almost time to wrap this season up. And we are here a couple minutes into practice. And Misano going to be a tricky one, coming off of Imola, the Mona Lisa of the season. A lot of unsteadiness from the drivers from what I've seen as we come into this final round, or not this final round, but into this round at Misano. No one to set a time yet. And I know Ormiston looking to close up the championship. It is a 1-point deficit between Ormiston and Platypus. Platypus is in the lead of the championship by 1 point. It is very, very close. Actually, no, it is Ormiston in the lead by 1 point. Platypus P2, Aramich P3 around 30 points behind. Langley still in the lead in the AM Championship. Mataj in P2 and Alex Manelli in P3. Well, Alex, you're not going to be getting those crucial championship points that you need tonight. Being as that you are in my hometown here. 35.9 from Sheila Frank. That is currently the time to beat, set by that M4 GT3 black and gold livery. That's going to be a competitive time. We could see times as low as the 34s here at Misano. But we also may not see everyone run their best lap times in this practice session. They may be saving them for quali. And one thing to note here at Misano, as Ormiston goes with a 34.6, currently top of the timing board. One thing to note and to just keep your eye on here, both if you are watching or driving, track limits. Track limits, track limits, track limits. Turn 2, inside curb. Drivers are going to want to cut that curve a lot. You can invalidate there. The turn 4, 5, and 6 complex. Not so much through turns 4 and 5, but 6. You can invalidate the lap and get a warning on the inside curb of turn 6 if you take it too far on the inside and carry too much speed. The exit of turn 6, very easy to get a warning there. It is not going to be anywhere outside of the realm of possibility to see a lot of drive-through penalties for track limits tonight. A lot of places where you can just step outside a little bit too wide and get that warning, and those warnings will pile up. Very narrow track here, not much room for overtaking. If you are going to want to go for an overtake, you've either got to be very aggressive or just very methodical in setting up the move. It's not really much room for a late braking, just send it up the inside sort of move. You're really going to need to play your cards right, find the hole, find the mistake of the car ahead, and do the best that you can. This turn 6 right here, very narrow on the inside, but also very easy to go too wide to the outside. Those sleeping policemen on the outside are definitely going to be something that you do not want to get onto. For one, they can unsettle the car when you get out too wide, but for two, if you are out that far, it is a very fine margin for the track limits. Very easy to get out of those track limits, and very, very easy, speaking from personal experience, to get the track limit warning through that section. Ormiston still with the top time and needing a good result. Championship battle right now between Platypus and Ormiston. Ormiston is holding on to this championship lead by 1 point, but must have a good result tonight, at least finish ahead of Platypus in order to hold on to that championship lead as we head into the penultimate round next week. Ormiston has had a lot of trouble in recent time. 34.0. We are likely, very likely, going to see times into the mid-33s, low 33s when we get into our qualifying session. Ormiston coming out swinging, at least in practice here. We'll have to see if this pace translates into a similar running on the timing board in qualifying. And in the golden hour here at Misano, that sunlight coming up into turn 9 and 10. Getting a little bit blinded from the sun just over the trees and the wall. But Ormiston still with the time to beat, at least in practice. This track should develop a little bit more. We may see optimum conditions and really get a good benchmark for what kind of lap times we can expect tonight. In the AM category, the Lamborghini of Yakashokis, top of the timing boards in AM. And Schwartz now up into the AM pole position, at least in this practice session. Sometimes this is the practice that you really need to get. Also, this is going to be the one time that you'll really get to set yourself amongst the field, see kind of where you stand, make some last-minute changes. This is your real final opportunity for experimentation on the car. We are going to be doing a split qualifying between Pro and AM, so we will have that 20-minute split, 10 minutes per class. Ormiston now down into the 33s with a 33.8. He is chasing down the number 99 of Schwartz. And a gaggle of friends behind. That does seem to be the number 334 of Peach in tow. It's also going to be, I believe that would be the McLaren of Pop. Would have to see who is in that McLaren behind. It is Iceberg, that number 2 McLaren, chasing down that field, or at least those two Mustangs. Ormiston, understandably, should be feeling some pressure tonight with this championship fight coming so close. Closer and closer to the end of the season. As I believe we only have about 2 races left. We have Zolder next Monday, which is going to be a rain race, and we are going to be racing at night here tonight at Misano. And then we do have the season finale on the 7th of October at Circuit of the Americas, my home track that, surprisingly enough, I have never commentated a race that has taken part at Circuit of the Americas. So that will be my first time doing COTA on stream. My home track, and I haven't even streamed it once. Over halfway through this practice session, and we are getting closer and closer towards those nighttime conditions. The track is getting sticky. We are seeing the lap time start to fall. Prieto, who has gone away from the Audi, now in the Acura, the Honda NSX, Acura NSX, whichever side of the pond you're on, whichever way you want to say it. I'm an American, so I'll say Acura all day. Prieto in the Acura NSX now only 11 hundredths of a second behind Ormiston. Makes you wonder how much they're pushing. The four-wheel slide from Prieto out of turn 13, or actually that was turn 15. Four-wheel slide out of turn 15, carrying a lot of speed through, definitely pushing. Once again, track limits here. We see a lot of usage of curbs, a lot of abuse of those sleeping policeman curbs on the inside and outside of these corners. Can go over them. There is a perfect line where you really get almost no feedback from them, especially through turn 6 and the outside of turn 6. But if you're on those sleeping policemen on the outside on that serrated curbing, you are going to be way too wide. Running very wide here at Misano is Prieto, though, all the way on the outside curbs and taking a bit of a dirt track line through the turn 8 hairpin. Is a slight amount of camber in there that can really help pull the car around the corner. Trying to fight back against Ormiston. Iceberg up into P3. Only a quarter of a second behind, and Ouroboros jumps right in between, 7 thousandths of a second faster than the previous lap from Iceberg. Another thing to note here, pit lane. Pit lane is very interesting, a very long pit lane. You enter before the final corner, come down through very long pit lane all the way down the pit straight, but then you have the kind of S's section as we will hop on board with Marvy coming through the pit lane, actually now coming out. And we'll go look at the 21 of Platypus as it is, as he actually dives back into the pit lane, I think needing to make another adjustment. But let's go on board with the 69, who will be just, or 969, just now rolling out of pit lane. That is the 969 of Mataj. And you are under pit limiter for quite a long time. It is going to be a long pit stop. The undercut is likely going to be very strong here. Going past the Aston Martin of Platypus. And also very easy to, on cold tires, come out of the pit lane and make a mistake immediately into that turn 3, turn 4, turn 5, turn 6 section. The last thing you want to do is spin that car, getting on the throttle a little bit too soon. Ormiston still on top, but who is holding their cards under the table? who is not really wanting to show what they've got in their hand. 33.8 the time to beat, but I have a feeling that we are going to see lap times lower than that in this qualifying session. Remember, we will have a split quali. AM's going first, 10-minute amateur qualifying, and then it will be a 10-minute pro qualifying split quali between the two classes. And then we will have the grid set and ready to race. About 3 minutes left in this practice session before we get started with quali. Majority of the field is out there. A few scrambling out of the pit lane to try and get their final laps in, Ouroboros being one of those in the Audi, allowing traffic to go past, and does have the McLaren of Iceberg in tow just behind. As they come through the 4, 5, 6 complex of corners. Going to be a very tight spot, especially on lap 1. Everybody trying to fight for position. There is going to be some door banging, some argy-bargy through turns 4, 5, and 6. Ouroboros actually getting a little bit of a rear wheel wiggle out of turn 8. Could just be those cold tires. Aramich in the Ferrari. You doubted me last week for saying that he should be running at the front of the field. Currently P3. It is just practice, but Aramich is still one to watch out for. And I will stand by my opinion. Although if you look at my fantasy football team, you would see that my opinion and my beliefs are for the most part very wrong. So take it with a grain of salt. This is not financial advice. But Aramich, when everybody goes back and watches the broadcast, and they all doubted you last week, I said that you are the closer. You are there when you need to be there. I say we look for a good qualifying result from Aramich tonight. And Aramich on the podium is going to be one of my predictions. Some of you may be rolling around in chat as Aramich for just a second goes 8 thousandths of a second up into P2. Ormiston eventually did run a faster lap at 33.7, and Prieto just 22 thousandths of a second behind that. But Aramich on pole is one of my predictions. If you guys are in the chat, I know some of you are not racing. Let me know what you think. Also, just feel free to cheer whoever on that you support in the chat. I know we've got a few of you that are unable to race tonight. And as always, thank you all for tuning in. 25 seconds away from the end of this practice session. Ormiston leading. I think going for another shot at an improvement before we head into the big one, quali for tonight. And if you are new to GFR, you can join the Discord link. Some people have said it. I didn't quite believe it. But now that I have been with GFR for a couple months now, I can confidently say that I believe GFR is the fastest league on console. It's one of the things they pride themselves in, but very rarely do you have this close of a field among this many drivers. And when I say this close of a field, you'll have the top 20 to top 25 at the end of the qualifying session, all setting lap times within a second, and all of those lap times are within 101% to 103% on the LFM pace chart. So if you are looking for a challenge in terms of your driving, if you are on ACC on console, GFR is going to be the place that you are going to want to try and cut your teeth. And as they go invalid, that's going to bring an end to this to this practice session. We are now live with qualifying, and it looks to be Nate in the McLaren first to roll out of the pit lane. As actually no, Michael D is going to jump up in front in the other Acura NSX. The original Acura NSX, as Michael D, I believe, has run the Acura the entire season. I think may have switched to a Mustang for one race at the Nordschleife. But we will go ride with Michael D, who is going to have Nate in the McLaren in tow behind. Do we have Langley here tonight? I don't see him on the leaderboard. And that could be the start of a question mark in the AM Championship. Langley currently leading. Has a margin enough to miss a race, but I think it's only going to be missing one more race. Will likely need to show up in the next 2 rounds in order to defend that AM Championship title. And as they come out of turn 10, through the 2 kinks of 11 and 12 to what is, in my opinion, one of the most challenging corners on the entire circuit. Turn 13, the fast flying 45-degree kink before you hard brake into the hairpin of 14, and then flat out through 15, trying to carry as much speed as possible out of 16. Diving low, trying to get onto the curb, then floated out to the outside and across the line to start the first flying lap of the session for AM qualifying. Michael D in the Acura, missing the first apex though, and as we did see Nate coming just behind, getting a lot of curb usage on that apex. Michael D is not necessarily going to be on for a flying lap here, as I believe Nate, carrying more speed, does seem to be definitely getting closer, as Nate, I believe, just invalidated. So again, very easy to invalidate the lap. Going to be looking at a lot of drive-through penalties during tonight's race. And Michael D bows out of the lap. Nate goes through ahead, but neither of these drivers are going to be on valid laps, and it looks to be that the next driver behind on a valid lap is going to be the 99 of Schwartz in the Ferrari. So we'll see what Schwartz can bring. And very tricky around here, tight margins, more narrow of a track in terms of the usable track. The track itself is not necessarily narrow, but the racing line, in order to get that optimal lap, is relatively narrow compared to the usable track surface. So there's ultimately not much real estate to use, especially in this qualifying session. Going to be very easy, as we have already seen, to invalidate. Schwartz, 35.8 the time to beat currently in AM. And catching up to that pack of cars up ahead, Michael D, Nate, and Mick Peachy. Profit goes P2, Rogue goes P3, both in McLarens. Schwartz chasing down the group up ahead. Michael D goes invalid at that time at turn 6, and I believe the 32 of Peachy did the same. Nate still on a valid lap, and we'll see what Nate can bring, as I do hear the Mustang of Christian B in the background. Riding on board with Nate, looking to set a flying lap here and pulling away from the group behind. Granted, a good bit of that group behind is on invalid laps, and it looks like we may have a slugfest here There's actually no Mataj in the Porsche. Currently in contention for that AM championship. Currently P2 in the championship. Good result here, especially with Langley not participating tonight, would be massive in terms of points. As actually Langley is in the session, a late join, but is in the session. Nate up into P3, not enough for pole position, but Mataj in the Porsche. Typically very good in AM qualifying, but has just not had the pace, or I would say the pace, has had the pace, but has just not had the luck to really bring it home. Getting involved in a lot of incidents. And we will just hope that Mataj able to bring it home clean today. As the number 56 of Runny goes wide. I believe a new driver tonight in GFR. Always glad to have new people, and a little bit deep into turn 4 for Mataj as Schwartz up into P2, Dingham P3, Nate P4. We'll see if Mataj brings anything. 3.5 minutes left in this AM quali. They'll have a couple more laps to go ahead and try put a valid lap down. Yakashokis, a variable that we have seen multiple times in this AM fight, has taken home a win in AM this season and multiple podiums. Yet to set a lap in qualifying. But we will wait to see what he is able to bring, as this should be a valid lap. And we'll see what it is across the line. No, not a valid lap there, so getting into crunch time, we'll have this lap and one more to try and put a valid lap down. Rowden putting a lap in, currently P14 in AM. Yakashokis still yet to put a lap in, McPeachy still yet to put a lap, and Langley, the AM championship leader, yet to set a lap. Langley going to be a big question mark. Will have this next lap and one more opportunity as long as he makes it around the track fast enough with no mistakes. Taj still on pole in AM, but awaiting the result from Yakashokis. If this lap is valid, could be enough to shake up the podium. Typically do see Yakashokis up towards the podium in AM. And another is going to be Langley in that BMW. Yakashokis through 13, hard braking into 14. Looks to be a good run, and catching the Mustang up ahead of, I believe that is Christian B, the number 25 Mustang. Hopefully this is a clean lap for Yakashokis. What are we going to be looking at? It's good enough for P7. We'll have one more lap to try to improve. It's got to be everything he's got, but missing the apex, not really using those curbs through turns 1 and 2. What is it for Langley? It's currently P6. We'll have this lap to try to improve, and we'll have the next lap. Nate is done, currently on pole, knocking Mataj down, and Mataj will not improve. Bowing off the track and back into the pit lane. Schwartz may have enough time. I don't think he's going to have enough time to get another lap in, as our pros are going to start queuing up at the end of the pit lane. As I believe we already have a few of them. Aramich queued up, and who all is that ahead? That is Platypus and Ouroboros, as they are all ready to go. Awaiting the clock to hit 0, or the 10-minute mark. More of those pros queuing up at the end of the pit lane. Schwartz will have this lap to try to improve, get on that pole position. Same thing with Michael D and the rest of the AMs. This is going to be it for AM Quali. Michael D, the number 343 Acura, coming across line ahead of Schwartz. Is it going to be an improvement for Michael D? It is up to P11. What is it for Schwartz? Up to P1. The 32 of Peachy up to P6. The number 27 of Yakashokas. Is it going to be an improvement? It's up to P4 on the second row in AM. A couple more drivers. Wilson on a valid lap. Is Profit on a valid lap? Profit was not. Wilson on a valid lap here. A couple more drivers yet to go, but the pros are out on track. They are getting started with their qualifying session. And into the pit lane for Wilson will not improve, but will get some good pit stop practice. 333 of Cabe in that Mustang. And I think that's going to be enough to invalidate the lap, but we'll see if it's an improvement. And I believe that did invalidate it. The number 34 of Dingham in the pit lane. Is it going to be an improvement from Langley? Needs to be. Currently P7, needs to defend this championship. It's up to P5 for Langley, and the number 56 behind of Runner. Good enough for P15. Well, in pro, Aramich leads the field. Ouroboros and Iceberg fighting behind for position. Aramich out in front with that clean air is going to be the one to start this qualifying session, as we will see the pros start bringing their flying laps in. Not as much curb usage as we have seen through there. And the sun is going down. The track is going to be cooling for pro qualifying, but we do have optimum track conditions. Should see these lap times. They could be very, very quick. 34.8 the time to beat in AM, and we saw pros running times in the low to mid 33s. We could potentially see some 32s, but we will just have to wait and see. Aramich actually pulling a nice gap to Ouroboros running behind. As I get my live timing up. Thank you to Trixit with Simbot for providing live timing. And what is it going to be for Aramich? 34.1 the time to beat in pro, but we are going to see a lot of lap times coming in. Ouroboros P2 in pro, Prieto P3, Platypus up to P3. And we are going to have times coming in the masses. Marvy P6 overall, P5 in pro. Frank P17 overall. Peach up to P4. And keep in mind the championship fight currently between Ormiston and Platypus. Those two are the ones to watch tonight. Their qualifying position could very well determine who is going to be the championship leader at the end of the night. If either driver finishes ahead of the other, they will be in the lead of the championship. Platypus just finishes one position ahead of Ormiston. Platypus will be in the lead in the championship. If Ormiston finishes ahead of Platypus, Platypus will hold on to the lead. Brad up into P7 overall. Autry P23 overall, and still the majority of the pro field yet to set a lap. Almost halfway through this session already. Ormiston in a bit of traffic with Peach up ahead. Your mom just behind. Ormiston trying to maybe find a little bit of slipstream help on this lap. Still yet to settle at Mad Psycaster P18. Iceberg up on pole with a 33.6. Aramich P2, Trixit P4. Platypus down to P5, an invalid lap there. That's going to be a dive into the pit lane. Ormiston up into P2. And now if you're Platypus sitting here thinking this is the fight for the championship, it's not over today. Still have 2 more rounds past this one. But thinking I need a good champion, or I need a good qualifying position. Anything could happen. There could be some contact. It is going to be a night race today under the lights like we were at Silverstone a few weeks ago. And the last time that we had a night race, that was when Ormiston was looking for the 4th win in a row. Did not get it, did not have a good run. Is the curse of the night going to continue for Ormiston? Has not been a good season from then on, but was far enough ahead to hold on to the championship lead. But now within 1 point, and Ormiston is showing up in crunch time. Starting to have some lights come on these cars tonight, as we are getting to those dusk twilight hours. This race will be at night. And it is going to be a 45-minute one-stop race. Iceberg 33.4. Prieto just 88 thousandths of a second behind. Is it going to be an improvement from Ormiston? With, I believe, the Porsche of Ricky Bobby up ahead. Ormiston currently P3. Platypus really needing the improvement here. Currently P8 and getting dropped down slapshot across the line up into P8. Really hoping for a better performance tonight compared to last week. Prieto P2, Ormiston P3, Trixit P4, Your Mom P5, Aramich P6, Ouroboros P7. Ricky Bobby finally coming back to join us tonight. Glad to have you back. We have missed the pink Porsche. Iceberg, the man to beat currently, and looking to be on a flying lap here, but does have the Prieto, or the Acura of Prieto, giving chase behind. And absolutely all over the track limits is Iceberg. Is this going to be an improvement here? We'll have this lap and 1 more to improve. Is Prieto going to snag pole position here? Not an improvement from Iceberg. It's an improvement of 0.03 of a second from Prieto, but not enough to get that pole position away. Ormiston looking for an improvement here. Does have Your Mom and Peach up ahead. Your Mom and Peach both looking for an improvement on their times. Your Mom up to P3, Peach stays P9. What is it for Ormiston? Does not improve. I am a little bit under the weather, so to limit myself from coughing, I am going to be taking a few more drinks of water than usual tonight. For many, this is the end of the qualifying session. For some, they get another chance. Iceberg currently on pole will be one of those drivers with another chance. Prieto will be as well. Aramich will get another lap in. The 56 of runner back out on track, but don't think that is really an issue. Iceberg looking to improve, needs some insurance on this pole position. Does improve just a few hundredths of a second, but any improvement, especially with these tight margins, 1 second the difference. I say from P12 down to P15, but from P12 to P15, 0.05 of a second the difference on lap time. Mad Psycaster and Giant, teammates in the Porsches, both running identical lap times. Marvy, P14, just 0.03 of a second behind, and Brute 0.02 of a second behind Marvy. Extremely close lap times, but here with GFR is the only place you're going to see lap times that close. Ouroboros, final lap. P8 is going to be as good as he can do. Mad Psycaster across the line. P12 will not improve. Brute across the line looking for an improvement. Doesn't need much to improve. Up to P11 for Brute. The 221 of Giant out of the final corner as the clouds begin to collect above the track. P10 for Giant is all he is good for. Aramich will be next across the line. The 2 of Iceberg has invalidated that lap, will bow out of it. It's down to a few. Aramich next across the line looking for pole position. I told you earlier to watch out for Aramich on the podium. What's it going to be for Aramich? Currently P3, 210 of Prieto across the line. Good enough for pole position, 33.2 the time to beat the 86 of Trixit next across the line out of the final corner. Going very, very wide out to the outer limit. What is it going to be for Trixit? Is it an improvement up to P3, knocking Aramich down a peg off of the podium, but hey, he's still on the front row, can't say anything. And the man of the hour, Ormiston, the championship leader by 1 single point. It's going to stay P6, but Platypus, the championship contender, only good enough for P11. In practice, our Am Field Schwartz, P1, Nate, P2, Mataj, P3. Give me just a second. Mataj, P3, Yakashokas, P4, Dingham, P5, Langley, P6, Georgester, P7, Peachy, P8, Cade, P9, Christian B, P10, Michael D, P11, Prophet, P12, Wilson, P13, Sierra, P14, Rogue, P15, Rowden, P16 in pro. And overall, Prieto on pole, Iceberg P2, Trixit P3, Aramich P4, Yermon P5, Ormiston P6, Slapshot P7, Ouroboros P8, Peach P9, Giant P10, Platypus P11, Brute P12, Brad P13, Mad Psycaster P14, Marvy P15, Schwartz P16, Ricky Bobby P17, Nate P18, Mataj P19, Yakashokas P20, Dingham P21, Langley P22, Frank P23, Georgester P24, Peachy P25, Cade P26, Christian B P27, Michael D P28, Prophet P29, Autry P30. And as we are a little bit quick here, Wilson P31, Sierra P32, Rogue P33, Runner P34, and Rowden P35. A lot of cars to go through, and I didn't have too much time to go through them. But Prieto leads us off the line, and I believe what could be Prieto's first pole position of the season. Elmo, I say you may need to refresh if you don't have any video. Prieto leading the field. We will run into the night. Starting at the Sunline Hour, it is a 45-minute race, 1 mandatory pit stop. And quite a long way back is this grid. Yep, I have the streams, both the Twitch and YouTube streams, open on my computer so I can monitor them. So thank you for letting me know, but usually if the feed is bad, it's usually just a need for a refresh. We have Slap doing a little bit of a pretend of being at the front of the field, reminiscent of his previous championship wins, but we can all dream. Just messing with you, Slap. Good qualifying, hope for a good position tonight, good finishing position. Same with your Ferrari brethren of Aramich and Trixit. I told you, Aramich, watch for him on the podium. And I will stand by my word. Prieto leads the field. You see everyone behind weaving, generating that tire temperature, the brake warmth, trying to do everything they can. So actually, we see Langley just going straight on like Kimi Räikkönen, not really doing much weaving through there. But a long way the field goes, and as we come into turn 14, we go side by side. 2x2 formation. Prieto will have the inside for turn 1, but very quickly you can be under attack in turn 2 if the car beside you is able to stick it around the outside. Tires are still going to be a little cool, brakes are still going to be a little cool, so it is going to be very interesting when we head into turn number 1. Turn number 2 is really going to be the place where you need to watch it. 2 cars in the pit lane. The number 15 and the number 62. 15 of Ricky Bobby, the 62 of Frank. Where Prieto leads us to the line on pole position as we go green flag here for round 8 of the GoFAST Racing League. And as they get set up through turn 1, hopefully no argy-bargy. They are 3 wide behind, and as we come through turn 2, Prieto good enough to hold on to it. Aramich looking like he goes around the outside of the teammate, and some door banging between Ormiston and Slap behind, but Slap throws the move into turn 4, and it is 3 wide behind. I told them earlier it's only 1 car wide through turns 4, 5, and 6. They said bet. And they sure showed me they're 3 wide between, I believe, Peach, Giant, and I think that may have been Platypus back there. And already racing for the podium position. Slap trying to find a way past Trixit, as Trixit has fallen victim to your mom, and Ormiston on the inside of Slap. As we run down to the kinks, Prieto in the lead with Iceberg in tow. Aramich trying to chase him down, and Slapshot and Ormiston side by side as we come into turn 13. Who is going to come out ahead? That is going to be Ormiston. And Prieto will hold on to this lead for this lap and will lead the first lap of this race. Now this track is going to develop. We don't have any rain in the forecast, but we are going to be going into the nighttime. So the perception of the track, those braking points, those brake markers, those references are going to become a little bit different as we go into the nighttime. Also, the track will become a little bit stickier as it cools. But Misano, a good track for the overhead view. You get to see a lot of the complexes at once. And Ormiston not playing around. Platypus at the break of the field, though, has Peach behind. It needs those cars ahead to battle, as that looks like Ormiston and Trixit doing battle here. Ormiston has broken free of Slapshot. Slapshot and Ouroboros now side by side. Slapshot forcing Ouroboros to go wide around the outside at turn 10. Very hard to do. And Slap will just park it, and I don't think Ouroboros will have the run to get the old switcheroo in. As we now line up single file as best we can. But Platypus, with the work to do in the Aston Martin, needs to chase down the Mustang of Ormiston. Doesn't really need to go for the win tonight, although it would be very beneficial in this championship fight. But Platypus just needs to finish ahead of that red, gray, and black Mustang, just a couple cars ahead. And with the battling Slap and Ouroboros up ahead, Platypus is going to want to try and find a way past those two very, very quickly. Prieto not really able to break free of the grasp of those drivers behind, as they are keeping it very close. The top 4 all within 2 seconds. And Trixit's just falling outside of that slipstream range of Your Mom, but Ormiston is within that slipstream range, starting to have that gap build. It was building with Ouroboros. Ouroboros and Slapshot have now dropped back, and now that gap is between Ormiston and Slapshot. Platypus going to have to try and find a way past, as he is bringing the Mustang of Peach along for the ride. Peach also very high up in the standings in this championship, but not as close to the championship lead as Platypus is. And as we are just 5 minutes into this race, a couple laps in, it is definitely getting heated. Iceberg putting the pressure onto Prieto and does hold the fastest lap of the race so far. Also, Aramich and Your Mom fighting, but Aramich on the podium. Like I said, to watch out for him doing. See if he can hold on to it, though. The gap is opening up between Aramich and Iceberg, but if Prieto and Iceberg begin to battle, that gap will quickly dissolve. But at the same time, if Your Mom decides to go offensive against Aramich here, that gap is also going to grow in the negative for Aramich. Trixit now holding the fastest lap of the race. Ormiston just running along this top 6 pack, as Prieto and Iceberg are trying to break away, but they have not really been able to do so yet. Schwartz leading in AM, but a bit of a mistake. Unsure of exactly what's going on with Schwartz here. Wonder if maybe there was some incident that we have missed, but he has pulled over to the side and allowed a good bit of the field to go through, and that will give Mataj the lead in AM. Dingham currently P2, Yakashokis just behind, then Langley just behind. This is a top 4 battle for the AM lead. This is also going to be a battle for the championship. Mataj, I don't think quite close enough to take that championship away from Langley, but is the next in line for that championship lead. Ormiston has found a way past Trixit. And is Trixit going to be on the back foot? Aramich and Your Mom still fighting that McLaren, getting closer and closer. And I don't think that Aramich is quite able to hold on to the slipstream of the McLaren up ahead. That McLaren also trying to hold on to the slipstream of the Acura up ahead. And Platypus still trying to find a way past Slapshot. Has made it past Peach. Platypus with a lot of work to do. Needs to get up there in that lead pack. If they continue to fight, it would allow that gap to close and Platypus to get closer and closer to that fight. Just needs to get within slipstream range where he can kind of latch on. The break has really started at the end of the AM fight. This lead pack does contain the top 4 in AM. Mataj, Dingham, Yakashokis, and Langley all here within one segment of track. Georgester and Michael D having a little bit of a scrap through the turn 10 hairpin. Georgester actually falling backwards, I think, into the grasp of the Ferrari of Wilson. Prieto stays leading. Iceberg in P2. Aramich has now taken the fastest lap of the race, currently sitting in P3, but is not going to let those leaders really get away. And as we are getting closer and closer to the nighttime, Aramich actually with a great run into turn 4. And I think pressure from Aramich may begin to surmount onto that of Iceberg. I talked about it in practice. I will reiterate. Track limit warnings are going to become a factor in this race. Positions will be decided by those penalties awarded for those 4 track limit infringements. we will see at least one drive-through penalty. I would be very surprised if we don't, especially with how strict the track limits are here at Misano. Ormiston now trying to break out into no man's land, needs to catch the Ferrari of Aramich up ahead. Your Mom and Trixit still following behind. I wonder what caused this breakup here. Maybe it was a slight mistake from Your Mom, as Your Mom was just behind Aramich, but Ormiston up into P4 as Iceberg and Aramich run the exact same lap time. Both tied for the fastest lap of the race. I've got the timing up. I'd like to see what that lap is. We'll wait for that timing to update. Your Mom will have to try and claw back some positions. Platypus behind as that gap is growing. The championship lead is fleeting as Platypus, too eager to make a move on Slapshot, makes contact with that rear quarter panel, and Slapshot goes around. Platypus deep into turn 10 to try and find a way back past the Porsche of Giant, and does. Unfortunate contact there between Slap and Platypus, as I think race control is going to be looking at that one post-race. As we come through turn 15 and 16, it's getting darker and darker. We are also approaching that halfway point. In about 10 minutes, we should start to see some of our first pit lane entries. No one gone into the pit lane yet, which means that we haven't had anyone go into service damage. Platypus has gotten passed by Peach trying to get that position back, but Giant, taking advantage of a mistake from Platypus, was going to slot in ahead at turn 3. Peach will just have to be patient, or Platypus will just have to be patient behind as Giant is looking to go forward. That lap between Aramich and Iceberg was a 133.675. The same lap time between both of them. Platypus now takes this position back. And we've got a race brewing. If I go back to car number 25, Christian B with Schwartz. Schwartz did have that interesting moment earlier at turn 8 a couple laps ago. Did pull the car off to the side. I wonder if that was in respect to any contact that had been made. Also going back to Platypus, Giant, and Ouroboros, they are all racing very, very close to each other. Everyone just kind of running through the laps, trying to close up the time to those cars ahead. Fastest lap of the race currently is a 33.5 from Prieto. Prieto still has Iceberg giving chase, and Aramich holding on to that gap of the cars behind. As Ormiston will try to close it up, but I think we'll have a hard time doing so, not putting up that fastest lap. But if Ormiston finishes ahead of Platypus, it will be good enough to hold on to the championship lead for another round. hopping back on with the AM battle. Mataj has actually opened up a gap to those cars behind, is getting some slipstream help from the Aston Martin of Marvy. Yes, Bush, if you are wondering, the lap times going down the field, the top 7 of the field are running lap times within the, or have run lap times in the 33-second mark in this race. The top 6 themselves are running consistently 33-second laps. Ouroboros trying to hold on to the Porsche of Giant. And that Porsche forced to be reckoned with right now as Ouroboros goes 2 tires in the dirt. And that's definitely going to cause a loss in speed, loss of exit speed out of turn 6. Prieto still leading. And as we approach the halfway mark, the question begins to arise, what is going to be the pit strategy, as Iceberg is actually seemingly under attack from Aramich behind. This top 3 has absolutely broken away from the rest of the field. As we come through the flying turn 13, Aramich is gaining, is within that slipstream range. Iceberg is not within slipstream of Prieto. And in these GT cars, the slipstream is not this magical force that pulls you alongside like you would with a DRS system. It is slow and creeping, but it is small improvements in time, little by little. 2/10 within the last 2 sectors knocked off by Aramich on Iceberg. And we could have a fight for P2, and that is going to play directly into Prieto's hand. Prieto is able to open up a gap to these 2 cars behind, the McLaren and Ferrari of Iceberg and Aramich. That would allow some comfort in the pit strategy. But these 3 up at the front are running lap times very, very similar to each other. Prieto actually running a slightly slower lap, about half a second slower than the 2 cars chasing behind. These top 3 are going at it. Mataj trying to find a way past Marvy to put a pro car between him and Dingham, next in line in this AM fight. And they are 3 wide up ahead. Slapshot, Mad Sidecaster, and Brute. Brute has gone past Slapshot, but Slapshot with a very late braking move sends it up the inside at turn 10, and Brute just has to afford the space to the inside. Battle for the lead heating up as well. 2/10 between P1 and P2, and it seemed like Iceberg was dropping off, but I think Prieto may start to see some pace fall off in that Acura, as Prieto has been consistently running slower laps than those 2 behind him. Previous lap, a 34.0 compared to the 33.8, so those margins are getting closer. But Prieto needs to pick up the pace or decide on the strategy, but I think the Acura is not going to be a long stint machine. As Iceberg sizing up the move, Aramich follows suit, and Iceberg tries it around the outside. They bang doors. Prieto will hold on to it, and Ouroboros, with that inevitable drive-through penalty, someone was going to get one tonight. Ouroboros is handed that drive-through. The number 24 Brute also gets a drive-through, as we are starting to see those mistakes begin to surmount. But we have a battle here between the top 3 in Pro. Oh, that's all right. I can fix that. Battle between the top 3 in Pro as we begin to have nightfall. Prieto trying to hold on to the lead. We are approaching the pit lane window. And I think that Acura may want to come in. Iceberg dives into the pit lane, going for the undercut. As that should look better. Just don't worry about that. But Iceberg going into the pit lane, Platypus also into the pit lane, both going for the undercut. We have more takers. No, we do not. Ouroboros and Brute serving the penalties. Iceberg in the pit lane. Also, we have the Acura of Michael D in the pit lane, Rowden in the pit lane. Platypus in the pit lane, waiting to get off the jacks. Iceberg waiting to get off the jacks. Also the BMW of Rowden just now rolling out of the pit lane. Iceberg off the jacks, rolling out of the pit lane. That is very weird that the YouTube quit on me. That hasn't happened in a while. Prieto still in the lead. Iceberg into the pit lane. Now Prieto comes into the pit lane, and are we going to see the undercut take effect here? Iceberg was chasing down the leader. Prieto into the pit lane. Prieto pitting from the lead, no one coming in behind. How is this going to fare for Iceberg? Has Iceberg made the right play? Will Iceberg take the lead here? As Prieto in the pit lane, Dingham also in the pit lane. Starting to have more takers. Schwartz coming into the pit lane. And Iceberg waiting to see where Prieto is. When does Prieto come off the jacks? Prieto is off the jacks. I think it may have been a slow stop for Iceberg. Where is the two of Iceberg? It's going to be a long way out of the pit lane for Prieto, though. We will have to see how this fares between the two. Prieto coming out of the final corner, or Iceberg coming out of the final corner. Prieto rolling through the pit lane. And I think Iceberg may have it. It's going to be very close. We see that McLaren just into the background. And Prieto trying to get to that pit lane exit. Comes out right alongside Iceberg, but just behind. Iceberg gets the position on Merritt out of the pit lane. Prieto is going to have the fresher tires, but that is going to be your battle for the lead. As we have a few more takers in the pit lane. Dingham rolling out of the pit lane. Schwartz rolling out. Nate rolling out. Brute rolling out. Ricky Bobby into the pit lane. I believe that is Aramich in the pit lane. Your Mom in the pit lane. Peach in the pit lane. Giant in the pit lane. It's also going to be Slapshot, Mad Sidecaster. We have a lot more takers. Mataj coming into the pit lane. But this battle for the lead has just gotten spicy. Prieto led every lap so far. But Iceberg with the undercut has taken the hold of the lead for now. As Iceberg looking to find a way past the traffic car of Runner, which is going to put him on the suboptimal line, will allow Prieto to close up a little bit. Prieto going wide there. That is going to be one of those spots where you need to watch out for those track limit warnings. Prieto trying to hold on to the slipstream of Iceberg. Prieto trying to get that Acura warmed up. And both of these drivers we have seen put up fastest laps of the race. Prieto still holds the fastest lap of the race. And that is Aramich just coming out of the pit lane. Is Aramich going to be in the lead of this race? We'll have to see where they're scored at the next line, but has Aramich played a blinder here and taken the lead of this race in the pit lane? I believe he has. Aramich stealing the lead with that pit strategy. An absolutely perfect stop. Comes out ahead of the both of them and plays the absolute blinder. Aramich in the lead on strategy. How strong is the overcut here? As Aramich stayed out longer than the both of them came out ahead. And Ormiston staying out very late. We'll see if Ormiston comes in, tricks it in, Marvy in, Ouroboros yet to come in, Yakashokis in, Langley in, Cabe with a drive-through penalty that needs to be served. This lead pack coming across some lap traffic. I believe that is the BMW of Rowden. We are getting closer and closer to the night time. The lights are on. It is dusk, but it is not pitch black yet. But Aramich leads, at least on merit. Where is Trixit going to come out in this fight? Is not going to be in the fight for the lead. And Aramich, I told you earlier, put your money on him for the podium, currently leading the race, and you all said that I doubt him. Still has 20 minutes left, but is in a great position to hold on to this lead for the time being. Aramich, no drive-through penalties. It's the last thing I need, as the number 71 of Your Mom gets a drive-through penalty. Cabe clears their drive-through penalty. And Prieto still holding on to the fastest lap of the race. Will have to try and hold on to this fight up ahead. As we have a clash of the Titans. Aramich, Iceberg, and Prieto. I thought it was going to be a fight between Iceberg and Prieto for the lead, and it has absolutely been turned up on its head as Aramich came out ahead of the both of them. Ormiston into the pit lane is rolling, and Ormiston could also become a factor in this lead battle. I don't know if he'll be close enough to the exit by the time they come to the line, but it could be very close. Still a long way to go. He will not be in that fight. He could be right on the tail end of it if he can get out of here and get onto the slipstream, and I think he is going to be able to do exactly that. We'll be on the fresher tires, and we now have a four-way battle for the lead potentially if Ormiston can get onto that slipstream. Peachy staying out, Wilson in the pit lane, Ouroboros rolling out of the pit lane. As we are getting a lot more drive-through penalties. Schwartz got a drive-through penalty. I think that is it for the drive-through penalties for right now. But they were going to come, it just took some time. As Mataj gets a drive-through penalty from P2. Desperately needs a good finishing position in AM to try and press the fight for the championship. But that is going to put a sour on those plans, as we have quite a few drive-through penalties down the field. Aramich leads with Iceberg and Prieto battling behind, but Ormiston crept into this fight. They seem to be fighting for P2, which will allow Ormiston onto that fight, but is just going to allow Aramich to try and pull away. Peachy, who has been scored the leader for a lap, just now rolling into the pit lane, will now drop back down in those positions. Prieto trying to catch Iceberg. Ormiston trying to catch Prieto. And Aramich trying to run away from all of them. Has pulled a 1 second gap. Prieto and Iceberg with the battle here, and Ormiston running just behind, hoping to pick up the pieces if things were to go awry. Peachy rolling out of the pit lane in the AM lead. Mataj will come out ahead, but I think it's going to be Dingham in the lead overall, with Mataj needing to serve that penalty. And I think we may now have a fight for position here between Prieto and Iceberg. Prieto trying to find a way past Iceberg, well within the slipstream range. Iceberg defensive on the inside for 13. Does Prieto send it up the inside? Nearly close enough, but we'll just have to slot behind and a touch of contact. And that, we look behind, has brought Ormiston right into this fight. And the three of them fighting together are just going to allow Aramich to pull away. But Ormiston now aggressively trying to find a way past Prieto and sends it up the inside, not afraid to go for that move. 4 wheels over the curb. Will he be able to hang it around the outside? Will be very close, but will not be able to. But Ormiston not afraid of that move. That has dropped Prieto back behind Iceberg quite a bit and taken Prieto out of that fight. 2.2 seconds the gap between Iceberg and Aramich, as that battle for the lead has gotten a little bit out of reach for Iceberg for the time being. Dingham currently running all on his lonesome in the lead in AM, should have that lead all but secured, as your mom comes out ahead of Dingham. But as long as Dingham doesn't get a drive-through penalty, should be A-OK, and an easy AM win for Dingham. Iceberg with Prieto not letting Iceberg run away, even with the pressure from Ormiston behind. Prieto still holding on to that fastest lap of the race. And Aramich will eventually run into some traffic, which could cause some backup for Aramich and close that battle up. Currently the closest battle on track is at the front of the field. The top 5 duking it out, as everyone else seems to be kind of running in their respective positions, almost single file. This top 4, especially these 3 on the podium, all running together. McLaren, Acura, and Ford. I was going to say Mustang, but Mustang's not a manufacturer. All racing together here. 720S, NSX, and Mustang all coming together if you want the models. And Iceberg faltering a little bit at corner exit. Does that NSX have the macho to pull a gap past that McLaren, or is that McLaren just too fast down the straights? Also was getting the slipstream from the Ferrari up ahead. That was the number 5 Ferrari of, I believe, Autry. Yes, that was. Wilson trying to find a way into that no man's land, running right behind Yakashokis and looking on the front foot to put the fight in order for that final spot on the podium in AM. Iceberg has still been able to hold off Prieto. Ormiston is still just riding behind. And Aramich, the gap is not necessarily expanding as much as it was. Could be that Aramich is just off the throttle a little bit, not pushing so hard, as there really isn't that much need to push so hard, as they are battling behind, especially with a traffic car in between, that Aston Martin of Sierra. Sierra does dive out of the way with those blue flags and allows the leading trio, or the trio in battle there, to go past. But Aramich leading comfortably. Just needs to limit mistakes, and it should be a good finish for Aramich. But this is where it all could get unraveled. Iceberg, Prieto, and Ormiston. Prieto put it on pole, but was unable to hold on to that lead, albeit it came just in the pit lane. Iceberg got the undercut. Prieto pit in reaction, and Aramich got the overcut on the both of them. And Ormiston, with a perfect stop, was able to close up onto this fight. And will actually go on board with Ormiston, as he is very close to that duo up ahead. And they are getting tighter and tighter. Something will break. You can only compress something so long before it gives. And the pressure here is going to surmount. The move will happen, and Ormiston, we have seen, is no stranger to going for that risky overtake. As they come out of 8, riding on board with Ormiston, looking forward to the 2 ahead fighting for P2 and P3. But I think they will just go along, going on board up a car to the NSX of Prieto, trying to find a way past at 13, trying to force the car ahead to overshoot. And it may have actually worked. I think he's almost got it done side by side out of 14, but Prieto unable to find a way past. Tried to set up the old switcheroo, and then Ormiston wanted to take advantage of the poor run from Prieto. Prieto had to shut that down very, very quick. And Ormiston once again going for this move at turn 2. And once again, Ormiston will just be unable to make it stick. That does allow Iceberg some room to breathe, and tricks it, getting closer and closer to that fight. Aramich up ahead, able to open up that gap even more. Wilson was closing up on Yakashokas, trying to get onto that AM podium. Dingham still running on his lonesome Langley, just a couple corners behind, but also in no man's land, no slipstream help. And Wilson getting that drive-through penalty, and that is going to tear those podium hopes away. Extremely unfortunate for Wilson. Your mom gets another drive-through penalty. And drive-through penalties have been the kicker in the midfield. The shakeup in the front of the field was the pit lane. The shakeup in the midfield is drive-through penalties. Have not seen any of this top 6, and I say top 6 because Platypus up into P6 is closing up on that top 5 fight. Iceberg with Prieto still in tow, Ormiston still in tow, and Trixit getting onto the back of this fight. Platypus is not far behind, and should the pieces, or should the castle crumble up ahead, Platypus would be in a perfect opportunity to take advantage. 7 minutes left of this race. That gives us about 4 or 5 more laps. And Aramich with that masterful call in the pit lane as Brute goes into the pit lane. And I think it is going to be a retirement for Brute. Unsure of exactly what happened there, but onto the trailer and done for the night for the Porsche. But it was looking like Prieto's race to win. It is now Aramich's race to lose, as he is just riding comfortably at the front of the field, but just behind, it is not so comfortable. And Platypus is closing 4.5 seconds currently the gap. See at the next timing line how that updates. Iceberg, Prieto, and Ormiston all still running within relative slipstream range of each other. Wilson clears that drive-through penalty, but that is going to drop him down a good ways on the order. Dingham still in a nice lead. Langley, that gap has actually grown quite a bit. And Yakashokis is, actually I say Yakashokis is closing up, but I don't really think that he is doing too much of that. At least not with the gap that he is currently dealing with. And Platypus actually holding that gap, not improving between those last few sectors. Iceberg now able to take a little chunk out of Aramich, half a second at that previous lap, or at the previous timing line. What is it now? It holds steady for Iceberg. Aramich, I can only imagine, is watching that delta, also coming into some traffic, as we'll see what Aramich is dealing with. It actually looks to be the Ferrari of Wilson up ahead. And the Mustang, I think that may have been the Mustang of Christian B. Yes, that would be the Mustang of Christian B, and then the Ferrari of Wilson up ahead, who is going to be getting blue flags as well. But with that traffic, that gap has dropped now another couple tenths of a second. Aramich running very wide there. The last thing that he needs is a completely avoidable drive-through penalty, but is unable to really let off the throttle, as Christian B is kind of putting a little bit of that, I would say, hindrance, but it's not so much hindrance, just wrong place at the wrong time, but that will play perfectly for Aramich. Who that will not play perfectly for is Iceberg, as that traffic has allowed Prieto to get right up onto the back of that fight. Rowden gets a drive-through penalty for track limits, and Prieto right back in it, trying to find a way past the McLaren of Iceberg. And as this fight is back on, that allows Aramich to breathe just a little bit more. Just a couple laps to go for Aramich. I think it should be 2 more laps to the finish. It will be very close, as the next lap could very well be the final lap. They are currently running times around the 133, 134 mark. If there is less than that much time on the clock, then that would make it the final lap of the race. Prieto, once again with a hope of P2, trying to find a way past the McLaren of Iceberg. And it is going to get very tense here, as these two have been battling the entire race, swapped positions at the pit stop. Aramich was able to slot ahead of the both of them in an absolute mind-boggling pit strategy play. And Ormiston will try and hold on to the 2 up ahead. Trixit also applying some pressure on Ormiston, but with this long straight, I don't think that Ferrari 296 would really have the legs on it to chase down the Mustang. Eyes turn to Aramich, as I think this next lap is going to be the final lap of the race. As it will be the final lap of the race. Aramich with 1 more lap to bring it home. and very safe out of the final corner. Wonder if Aramich has those drive-through or those warnings for the drive-through penalty. And Aramich will just try and be as safe as possible on this lap. Does have those two battling behind. Prieto still trying to find a way past the McLaren of Iceberg. Iceberg has not really been at too much danger of being overtaken. I think we've got a fight in AM as Mataj drops back from that fight. Is Mataj out of fuel? So I'm sure of exactly what's going on there, but Mataj just backed out of that fight. I wonder if maybe there was some contact. Into turn 10 for the final time for Aramich, but they are fighting behind Iceberg and Prieto. Prieto eyeing the move. It's going to come down to the final few corners and some flashing of the lights for Prieto down the straight. Are we going to see more flashing of those lights into the braking zone for turn 13? We do not. Is it going to be an absolute send from Prieto into 14? It will not. Aramich with just one corner to go. You doubted him last week. You said I was wrong for saying that he consistently finishes at the front. And Aramich takes home the win in round 8 of GoFAST Racing Season 3. Iceberg P2, Prieto P3, Ormiston P4, Trixit P5, Platypus P6. Peach will bring home P7. There's quite a margin between P6 and P7. Peach, P7, Giant, P8, Mad Psycaster, P9, but Slapshot is right behind. Mad Psycaster, P9, Slapshot, P10, Marvy, P11, Ouroboros will bring home P12. Dingham will bring home the AM win tonight. I believe that may be Dingham's first win in AM, but I'm not 100% sure. Langley brings home P2. Yakashokis with Georgester just behind. They come into the final corner. It's going to be a three-way fight for position. Mataj and Georgester make contact. Georgester goes around Yakashokis P3. Georgester around Mataj P5. Peachy P4. Georgester still trying to get that car started up. We'll lose more positions. Frank P19 overall. Ricky Bobby P20. Schwartz will bring home P7 in AM. Georgester will bring home P8. Michael D P9. Christian B P10. Sierra P11. But it seems to be that we had some donuts from somebody. That is Peach absolutely burning it down. And that is going to bring it into the festivities tonight. There are cars scattered all over the place. That was a very eventful race from beginning to the end. I will make sure that I save the race as a highlight so it doesn't go anywhere, because the YouTube stream has had that issue. But I will make sure that there is a permanent recording of this race. Please don't go anywhere. We will be rating someone else. Thank you all for tuning in. If you are not following, please consider following. Please consider subscribing. It helps a lot. It pays for the overlays, and it also helps me get better streaming equipment to improve the quality of the streams over time. But we're going to go ahead and find somebody to raid. I think I did a good job tonight, even with being sick. But we will find someone to raid. This guy's wearing a helmet, so I think we're going to go raid this guy. He looks cool. This guy is sim racing with a helmet on. So please make sure that you guys say hi to them. And let's go ahead and get this raid going. Make sure you hop in that raid if you would like to join us as we go raid Logan Goes Racing. This dude is sim racing with a helmet on. Or commentating, one of the two. Thank you all for tuning in, and I will see you on Wednesday with TRC.